Let's take a look at Heath's quarterback tiers right now on Fantasy Football Today Express. What's up, everybody? Welcome to the rebrand. This used to be Fantasy Football Today in 5. Now it's FFT Express, Fantasy Football Today Express. We're excited to have you along with us. The shows are going to be a little bit longer, give you a little bit more information, but still very digestible, 8 to 10 minutes or so. So I'm Adam Aizer with Heath Cummings. Let's talk about Heath's quarterback tiers. And this is in 6 point per passing touchdown, 6 point per passing touchdown leagues. Heath, what's tier 1 for you?
Tier 1 for me is the same as tier 1 for Jamie. It's Patrick Mahomes, Jalen Hurts, Josh Allen, and Lamar Jackson. All 4 of these guys I am comfortable drafting as early as round 3 in a 1 quarterback draft. They should be top 6 picks in Superflex.
Okay, I'm not even going to spend any time on those guys. Let's go to tier 2.
Tier 2 for me, Joe Burrow, Dak Prescott, and CJ Stroud. Feels like the safe bets to be a top 8 quarterback crew, although Burrow's injury history may give you a little bit of pause there.
What is the upside of tier 2?
Listen, I think we've seen Dak Prescott show us that he could be a top 3 quarterback. Joe Burrow's shown that. With Stroud, we're projecting a little bit, but with Tank Dell, Nico Collins, Stephon Diggs, I'm comfortable saying that. Top 3 quarterback is the upside for this group.
All right, so that is CJ Stroud, Dak Prescott, and Joe Burrow in tier 2. Let's go on to tier 3 here.
Tier 3 is the I think one of the more fun tiers. It's just a 2-man tier for me. It's Kyler Murray. It's Anthony Richardson. I might actually say that both of these guys have more upside than tier 2. I think both of these guys have a little bit more uncertainty or risk than tier 2 or as well. Some of that's health-based. Some of that's weapons-based. But Murray and Richardson in tier 3, guys that I am looking for in that round 7 or 8 range. Now, I say that in our drafts. It's not going to happen in your drafts, but about a round or 2 after Burrow, Prescott, and Stroud.
Yeah, it's weird. I don't know what prevents me from drafting Kyler Murray even earlier, because I don't see as much risk, I guess, as you do. He's just been a very, very consistent quarterback. And like I said, last year, I said this on the full-length show. Last year, he comes back from a torn ACL, doesn't really have a great receiving core, in my opinion. Actually, pretty terrible team, right? One of the worst teams in football. And he's QB 11 per game in 6 point per passing touchdown leagues. He's QB 9 per game. That was a kind of an inferior version of Kyler Murray that's not running as much as hopefully he will this year, a full year removed. Well, no, 2 years removed, right, from the torn ACL. So I don't really see, I can't argue with you about risk for Anthony Richardson, but I don't see that risk really for Kyler Murray, Heath. I think he definitely belongs in tier 2. I will say he definitively belongs in tier 2, and I would take him ahead of Dak Prescott.
I think you should be drafting him like that. I don't know why you're not doing that either. But yeah, I just think there is a little bit. Listen, I love Marvin Harrison Jr. I think he's going to be an elite wide receiver. He is also still a rookie who's never played in the NFL. I think there's a little bit of risk that in his very first year, and we're drafting him in round 2, so I'm not accounting for that very much. But in his very first year, he's not the savior that Kyler Murray needs in the receiving core. And his passing stats have been relatively mediocre when he hasn't had an elite number 1 wide. Like, it's basically DeAndre Hopkins or no DeAndre Hopkins. And there's a big split in his passing numbers when he doesn't have the elite number 1.
Yeah, just, he's got a top 10 wide receiver based on ADP and a top 4 tight end based on ADP. And he runs for 600 or more yards. So that's why that's why I think he's a great value. I'll just put it that way. He's a great value. He's going like what I say, in the 80s in CBS as a QB 10, I believe, Kyler Murray. So great value, 89th overall. We got a little bit more to talk about. We're going to do it after a real quick word from our sponsors on Fantasy Football Today Express. We are on to tier 3 here. Or tier 4. Tier 3 had 2 players in it, Kyler Murray and Anthony Richardson. What's tier 4 for you?
Tier 4 is a 5-man tier. It's Jordan Love, Tua Tagovailoa, Trevor Lawrence, Brock Purdy, and Jared Goff. These are the guys that feel like they're going to rank somewhere between 8th and 15th in terms of total fantasy points. Most of these guys I like just a little bit better in 2 QB leagues than I do in 1 QB leagues, where the floor matters just a little bit more. Goff gets into this group largely because of his very favorable schedule, which we've talked about a lot. I think he goes outside 3 times all season long. It's the Adam Aizer special in terms of a schedule. Gets to stay indoors, and he has been 24 fantasy points per game over the last 2 seasons when he's playing indoors.
Jared Goff's working from home this year. I love it. He's just going to play on Zoom. But this is not a lot of rushing in this tier, I'd say, except for Lawrence, right? Lawrence has the most rushing upside in this tier.
Yeah, I think Lawrence is probably that 300 range, and Purdy and Love should be in the 200 to 250 range.
Okay. And Brock Purdy scores over 20 fantasy points almost every time out. So that's a nice floor. We'll change our outlook on him if Brandon Ayuk gets traded. But until then,
for sure,
he's here. All right, what's our next tier? What's tier 5?
It's another 2-man tier. And this was, I think, like, you have a hard time. Do you tier entirely based on value, or do you let archetype play into that a little bit as well? And Jaden Daniels and Caleb Williams being the rookie quarterbacks with big time upside, but a very low floor. We've seen a lot of terrible, terrible performances, including Bryce Young last year, from players who were drafted 1 or 2 at quarterback in their rookie season. Just go back to Trevor Lawrence, one of the guys we just talked about in his rookie year. Daniels, I am more excited about, and I think you could make the argument for him in the Kyler and Richardson tier because of his rushing upside. Caleb's going to run probably more than the tier 4 guys, but I've got some pretty big concerns, like with the way he played football in college and how that's going to translate in year 1 as a rookie.
Yeah, I think for Caleb Williams, the rushing totals are hard to predict, and they're probably the key to how good of a value he's going to be. I'm definitely more comfortable than Heath is taking these guys as my fantasy starter in, maybe like the 8th or 9th round. And that's the thing is I pretty much, if I ever do it, I will pair them up with someone else in the previous tier, in the Brock Purdy, Tua Tagovailoa group. I mean, those 2 guys, especially Purdy. I love like a Purdy Caleb Williams or Purdy Jaden Daniels. I think I'm in the minority. I prefer Caleb Williams in 6-point per passing touchdown leagues. You like Daniels better?
Yeah, and like philosophically, I just don't like using a pick in the single-digit rounds on a quarterback that I feel like I very shortly after need to get another quarterback.
Yeah, just as long. I mean, there's a difference between like round 4 and round 8, but right,
There's
like
a 4-round difference.
Yeah, there is like a little bit, yeah. But I would say top 100. If I don't have to use a top 100 pick, then I'm fine going quarterbacks, relatively close to each other. But even if it were like Caleb Williams and, I like Deshaun Watson. We'll get to the next tier. Or Caleb Williams. We'll talk about who else is in that tier. Rodgers. No, I probably would want to stick in that previous tier with the Purdy, Tua, Lawrence, etc. group. If Caleb Williams can get to 300 rushing yards, I think he's going to be a top 12 quarterback. And
I am much more optimistic about him getting to 300 rushing yards than the idea of him getting to 4,000 passing yards.
It'd be the first time in Bears history.
It doesn't happen very often for rookie QBs either.
No, I would tend to agree with you. I don't. It's probably not going to happen even with those weapons. What do you think, Heath? Give me one more tier.
One more tier, and it's a monster tier. It's Aaron Rodgers. Don't worry about the order. Aaron Rodgers, Justin Herbert, Deshaun Watson, Russell Wilson, Kirk Cousins, Matthew Stafford, Baker Mayfield.
Okay. Yeah, I guess if I were splitting hairs, I would put Watson and Herbert in a different tier.
And I think it's one of the, like, that Chargers offense will be kind of one of the mysteries that we're going to get to unlock the first month of the season. How much of Greg Roman's history that conflicts with everything that's happened in Justin Herbert's career. Where's the happy medium there? Is he throwing 30 passes a game or 34 passes a game? And are any of his wide receivers any good at all?
Yeah, we'll find out hopefully pretty quickly. Thank you to Heath Cummings, our first episode of Fantasy Football Today Express. It's been fun. We'll have another one tomorrow right here on, I've said it again, FFT Express. See you tomorrow, everybody.